Hi, Brittyn. Thank you so much for joining me this morning and afternoon for you.
Thanks so much. I'm excited.
I was hoping first that you could give a little bit of an intro and talk about your background and how you got started in this area of focus.
Yeah, so I'm a registered dietitian. I specialize in kids on the autism spectrum, but what I do for a living is help parents learn how to expand their child's limited diet by using sensory friendly approaches, making sure that we honor their child's sensory needs so that then we can meet their nutritional needs. So I love what I do. I support hundreds and hundreds of families through a membership site called the Nourishing Autism Collective. And also am very engaged and active on social media, and which is where we connected.
Yes.
And yeah, just love to be able to support families. And the reason why I do all of this is my brother Barrett is on the autism spectrum. So he's now 29, but he was diagnosed when he was 2 years old, and I'm his older sister. So my whole life that I can remember is really autism. And so I think I've learned so much from being his older sister, and it's really been able to help me help my clients better because he was an extremely selective eater. I mean, everything that I support my clients through, we went through as a family as well.
Yeah, yeah. I also have a neurotypical daughter, so I think it's also great talking to those siblings because it affects their life so much too. And I think as a parent, I want their life to be I don't like to use the word normal, but like I don't want to kind of change experiences for them because of my son. So I think it's also really important to touch on both sides of it. So in addition to all the things that you do, you also have a podcast, the Nourishing Autism podcast, and you talk a lot about selective eating. You have some episodes on sensory issues and challenges. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some common challenges that parents may be facing with picky eaters or challenging eaters while traveling.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, we do see really high rates of selective eating and autism because of the severe sensory aversions that we also see. And so there are a lot of other reasons too for picky eating and autism outside of sensory sensitivity, but that is the main piece to it.
Mhm.
There's also gut issues that we see in a large majority of kids that can really impact the foods they want to eat or how comfortable they feel. We also see nutrient deficiencies that can come into play as well, low oral muscle tone or just low muscle tone across the board. All of these things can impact a child's eating. Certain
Yeah.
medications even can impact their hunger and metabolism. So that across the board is something to consider just as a whole. And then when we start to travel and get out of our typical routine and be in places that are unfamiliar and maybe a little overstimulating, then we can also see some additional challenges that come into play that as a parent, we can prep ahead of time to help with some of these things, help your child, set up some supports for them. And then I'll also talk about just like when we're on vacation, the kind of mindset that we want to be in as well, and so that you can fully enjoy your vacation. And just also remember that eating, yes, is always going to be a part of it, right? That's like the cornerstone of like living is being
Yeah.
able to eat and like nourish yourself, but also like thinking back on the vacation and being able to say like, we had this fantastic experience, and not letting the eating influence that entire experience and like override it. So there are definitely some things that you can do to help manage like while you're on vacation, especially Disney World, which we love. I don't know if I told you this, but we've been at least like maybe 15 times, maybe more. My brother loves it. We love Disney World. We've been to Disneyland. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Disney World is superior. So I am very familiar with Disney World. We love it as a family. And so I'm like super familiar with like, I could probably like draw the maps out.
Well, I'll have to come to you for tips because I'm in California and we go to Disneyland a lot. I have been to Disney World, but I'm excited to take my kids there. And it is completely different. So,
Totally.
in talking about Disney, is there like a right or wrong approach to eating at Disneyland? And I'll give you a little bit of an example. For
Yeah.
me, I am very much an advocate for not forcing. I think that that brings on a lot of negativity and some trauma there, especially like things that I experienced in my childhood. So honestly, when we go to Disneyland, if my son wants pizza or chicken nuggets every day and fries, I kind of go with it. Is there really a wrong approach? Like, I kind of want to help parents level set, like it's a vacation.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I'm with you. I never force, bribe, beg, like all of those approaches with food. Like we always want to help kids build positive relationships with food. And when we're forcing it and when we're like making them go past their sensory threshold of like, you have to take a bite before you can eat X, Y, and Z, your safe food, what we're doing is like assigning these negative associations with these other foods that were, probably coming from a really good place. We just want them to eat more and get more nutrition, but we have to make sure that we're approaching it in the right way, or else we can really make some like lasting harmful impacts on food. And so I want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. Now, for vacation, it's interesting because I see a lot of kids, when they're out of their routine, their diet gets smaller. And that's because they're trying to manage some overstimulation from things being out of their control. It's out of their routine. We know that kids, especially on the autism spectrum, really like predictability and routine. And so now we're in a completely unfamiliar place. It's loud. It's completely new and overstimulating. So we can see kids will start to narrow their foods to try and like self-regulate because their safe foods are really regulating. And that's usually why they're a safe food, is because it is really regulating for the child. So we can see that happen. But then I also see some kids that all of a sudden become more adventurous and like open. And so you never know. And sometimes it totally surprises you. I think the best advice I can give is to just really go with the flow and come to it with like the expectation, like, I'm prepared for nourishing my child if that's what they need. Because some kids love chicken nuggets and French fries, but it's brand specific, so they're not going to eat the ones at the park either.
Yeah.
So we have to think like coming prepared, like setting yourself up for success, and other things happen on top of it. Go with it. Go with the flow. And I'm with you. Like, this is coming from a dietitian. Like, I'm all about the experience, and food builds some really great memories and experiences that I am not going to overly stress on the exact like nutrition of those foods.
Yeah.
So like I love, one like special thing. I like when I go to Disney, I really want some pineapple whip. They have that, right? I just saw it at Costco and I bought it and I was like, it's not the same because it's not at Disney. And it's in my freezer. And I'm like, I shouldn't have bought that because I associate it so much with Disney that it's the experience of eating it for me. And it's not the food itself. And like, sure, it has, who knows, lots of sugar. And it was actually better ingredients than I thought. But I'm like, I've never checked before because that's an experience for me.
Yeah.
It's not about the nutrition in that moment.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want parents to realize is like, yes, we can aim for the best nutrition. I'm all for that. More veggies, more fruits, more like all the things, more vitamins and minerals. But we got to think about the experience and we got to like.
You have to balance it. Yeah, totally. I mean, there's also so many things as a child and those memories that you have. You remember, I had my churro for the first time at Disneyland or Disney World.
I remember my first churro experience.
It's the sights, the smells, it's everything. So, it's just kind of having that like memory and it being positive around food. Mm-hmm. One of the episodes that I listened to on your podcast was about selective eating and ARFID. And I'd really like to talk about ARFID. And maybe if we could just pause for a minute before I get into the question and you can give a little bit of an overview of what ARFID is.
Yeah. So ARFID stands for Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. And what a lot of people don't understand is that it's actually an eating disorder. So it is categorized among other eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia. However, the difference that ARFID is between all of these other eating disorders is that it has nothing to do about the way that you view your body or the size of your body. In fact, it is rooted in like extreme anxiety around food. It can be extreme sensory aversions. It could be like traumatic experience with food when the child was young, maybe linking back to like a choking experience. It could link back to an anaphylactic response, like if the child had a food allergy that caused like some of that deep-rooted anxiety in food or fear of food. And so we see these kids, we see a drastic increase in ARFID and autism. And so we have to, it's really helpful at least to be able to recognize those signs of ARFID, because it can really help open the doors for the right kind of supports for your child if they do have ARFID. Now, not to make this more confusing, but there's something else called pediatric feeding disorder. And pediatric feeding disorder is actually pretty common in autism as well. But what's different about this than ARFID is that it more takes into, they're like 4 big pillars, and it can take into account like feeding skill, maybe a medical issue that's getting in the way of a child being able to like properly eat a food, psychosocial, which I won't go too much into, but like the eating experience. And so and the nutritional is the other piece, but these are very similar diagnoses in the way that a child's eating is very limited, but for different reasons. And so I like sharing about both of those, because I think a lot of parents finally start to feel understood when they're like, well, this is why my child is eating 3 things and why we're not able to move past that. It's because there's some other things that are behind the scenes going on, and having those diagnoses in place can really help parents be like, okay, we would benefit from, seeing a child therapist for some of the food anxiety, or we would really benefit from going to a feeding therapist who specializes in sensory issues and oral muscle. So I always mention both of those because we see a huge increase in both diagnoses and autism, and you can have both. Like you could have ARFID and pediatric feeding disorder.
Now, as a parent, how would you maybe approach some of these challenges that your child is having in planning a trip or going to Disney or something like that? I'm thinking, as we talked about at the start of this, is I have a neurotypical daughter, and I really want to maintain, certain experiences for her, but I also want to make sure my son is very comfortable. You have other kids, you have a child that has this challenge, but you want to take a family trip. Are there some maybe practical tips or, little things that parents can do to kind of start the planning and not feel that overwhelming, worry?
I love planning ahead so that my future self doesn't have to stress. I'm like, how can we make this easier for our future selves? And I talk to my clients about this all the time of like, let's put in a little extra work in planning right now so that when you're in the moment and you're getting ready for a mealtime, you're not racking your brain and trying to dig and stressing out about what you're going to feed them or like what new food you're going to introduce. You have a list and and it's there and it's easy. And like, let's make this easy. Now, it does involve a little bit of extra planning and like ahead of time, but I would rather you do that and then enjoy your vacation experience way more than stressing about all these things. So planning ahead, and I have a few tips for doing that too. We want to make a list of like even a few weeks beforehand. You probably know your child's safe foods off the top of your head. Like you could probably just list them down pretty easily. But it's helpful to kind of gather what is some of the variety that we have in here. I actually have all my clients inside my membership, or all my members, write out like all of our safe foods, all of our maybe foods, and all of our like not yet foods where they've tried or they just really want them to eat, X, Y, and Z. So write down all of their like safe foods, and then think how are we going to access these while we're there? Does it mean that we bring them with us? Because that in itself, like if you pack an extra bag with these safe foods, the anxiety that is going to decrease for you is drastic.
Yeah.
Number 2 is looking ahead at some of the grocery stores that are available locally to you, seeing which ones you can order online like we have a Safeway membership. It's $99 a year and you get like $60 of food credit. So it's like 30, like my brain is like trying to make it the cheapest it can, right? But it's free grocery delivery wherever. And so for us, I can place my order online at 10 p.m. at night, and like groceries are on my doorstep at 7 a.m. And so like for me, that's totally worth it. The like decreasing anxiety. I don't want to be like grocery shopping on my trip. Like I want to make it easier for me. And like, can I get groceries delivered to my hotel ahead of time?
Yeah.
Like,
And
how can I do that?
there are so many stores that offer that. And
Yes. Yeah.
the last time that we were there, we were staying at the Disneyland Hotel, and we actually had a Walmart delivery for us at the hotel. And it does really help us. It's also cost savings. You know, we ate in the room breakfast before, had some snacks, and then we could kind of hit the parks and then mobile order. So totally, I'm in line with you on that for sure.
Yeah, it really does save a lot of money. And then it also like helps provide like some of those things you couldn't pack, you know, like frozen
Yeah.
nuggets or like frozen waffles or something that couldn't
Mhm.
travel with you. But those like shelf stable things that are very like, let's say your child is very brand specific, bring it with you. Like don't even chance anything being out of stock. Like if you
Yeah.
need it. And what you can do too, like bring a suitcase, like go to TJ Maxx or somewhere and buy a suitcase that is like a soft one that you could like pack into another suitcase or
Yeah.
some that fit inside each other. Or like the reality of it is you're coming back from Disney, you're probably going to have stuff that you brought. Like you're probably just going to like displace the food for like whatever you just bought. So
Souvenirs, all that stuff.
it's just nice. Like probably your future self is gonna be like, oh, I'm so glad I have this extra packing space. So like bringing
Yeah.
that food with you, there's no shame. And I think it's just gonna help your whole experience. And then lastly, just locating some local restaurant options, like, and prepping ahead for the park, like what is available. Disney has like, they're great with dietary restrictions.
Yep.
They have like tons of resources and information to help you and guide you on this, like looking at menus ahead of time. There are like blogs of people, like if you're gluten-free, there's like gluten-free Disney blogs.
Yep.
So I think prepping ahead of time on like, yeah, if my child really likes chicken nuggets, where can I get those? At what parks? Like write it down for yourself and like make it easy so that you can be like, we're going here for lunch when we go to Magic. I forget the names of the parks at Disneyland, but like a Magic Kingdom or Animal Kingdom, like
Yeah.
here's where we're going. And that can make things easier for yourself as well.
Yeah. Also on at both parks, the mobile app, it's really helpful with the ordering ahead on the mobile app. So it also helps me talk to my son about and kind of empower him. Okay, here are the options. What would you like?
Yeah.
You know, for us, since he's a little bit older and we've gone a lot, I like to give him the options, you know, because my daughter and I will most likely eat whatever it is, or there's something else nearby. But I think it's important to empower some of the older kids to help them make a decision. And I'm wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about like that sense of option and empowerment.
Yeah, totally. I think what we want to do, I love getting them involved because this is their vacation too. And like,
Yeah.
they also, to the point of like feeling out of their routine and feeling a little overstimulated, like being able to make some choices can really help them feel a lot more regulated and grounded and just a part of the whole experience. And so what I say in those scenarios, do the research ahead of time, like figure out some options that you think that might be a good fit for your child. And then say, do you want this or this? Giving them the option between two things. Because what I see sometimes is that we want to involve kids so much that we just say an open-ended question of what do you want? And then the executive functioning of like, oh, well, I don't know the options. Like we see some overstimulation. So like providing 2 to 3 options for them to choose from, and then them getting to feel empowered in whatever choice that they make. I find that that is a lot easier of an experience for them.
Yeah.
And then kind of reminding that throughout the day. Like, I'm so excited to go visit, you know, Mickey's whatever, because it has your favorite and you chose this for us. Like reminding them and empowering them in that can also kind of reinforce like, this is the choice that you made and that we're following. And here's what you can expect from mealtime, I think is really good too.
Yeah, I think definitely limiting the options. I mean, as a parent, whether you're on the spectrum or not, sometimes it can be a little bit option overload and
Yeah.
it's overwhelming even for us as parents. So I love the giving the option. And I do think it really does help him feel that sense of empowerment, which, because I think a lot with him is he doesn't want to feel different.
Mhm.
And I think as kids get older and they are learning about their either diagnoses or their challenges or, you know, just what makes them different. I think it's important to let them feel like they made the choice and they loved it and it felt good to them. So, um, one thing
Exactly.
I want to talk about is eating in a new environment.
Mhm.
Some of these kids have maybe never been on a plane before, and maybe it's a little bit of a longer plane ride, and they may be eating in a place like Disneyland or in a car for a long period of time. Are there any tips or kind of techniques that you can give parents to help kind of coach their kids in this new environment?
Yeah, a few things you can do ahead of time. I love social stories. There are plenty that you can buy online and kind of insert your child's information, or you can make your own. You can talk about, my brother's name is Barrett. So, like Barrett's trip to Disney World. He gets on a
Mhm.
plane, he eats a snack. We go, we swipe our cards, we show up at the hotel, like all those little
Yeah.
steps, and reviewing that weeks ahead of time so that they know what to expect from that experience because it all is completely new. Even talking about like, we wait in a line and we wait our turn. Now, Disney also has some really fantastic accommodations for,
Yeah.
like, we always use their disability pass because
Mhm.
Barrett cannot wait in a line at those. I mean, who
Same.
can, honestly? Like, those
No.
are so, it's crazy. And the fast pass, yes, it's great, but it's not helpful enough
Yeah.
for my brother at least. And so
Same for
having
both
that
of us.
exactly having that additional disability pass is really helpful. So I think still talking through the lines, it's going to be a
Mhm.
lot better when you have those supports in place. So I think a social story can be helpful. Visual schedules can be fantastic.
Yeah.
And if you already utilize them at home, bring them with you. Like, I actually have one. Like, this is from my friend Molly. She's the autism consultant, and she sent these to me. So, like,
Those are
the
great.
to do, like ripping it off, bring this with you, put it on your mirror, take it with you in the park. There are
Mhm.
also like the first then. So, like, make some
Yeah.
Disney, print these off at home before you go. And, like, first, we're going to go on Splash Mountain or whatever. I can't remember. I don't remember the
Yeah.
ones there. Next, lunch. Like, kind of knowing what to expect even for kids who like are this is great for kids who are both speaking and non-speaking. It's just
Mhm.
great to be able to see this. You can even like have something on your phone, but do it before, like work on it before if
Yeah.
you're not doing it already. Don't bring something completely new into this scenario.
And try to introduce something new in a new environment.
Oh yeah, we want to work on this ahead of time, at least. Like, I would love at least 2 weeks of
Yeah.
intro if you
Yeah.
can. But
No, I
that's a
think you're
great
right.
idea for sure. And then the last thing I would say is like, if there are supports that help your child feel safe and regulated at mealtime, like their particular plate, or like I actually talk to families a lot about like place mats
Mhm.
that you can travel with you and kind of tell your child's brain, hey, it's time to eat and it's safe here. So like I wish I had one with me, but like there's silicone roll-up mats that can be great for
Yeah.
any kids. The brand I like is called Easy Peasy.
Uh-huh.
And you can just roll them out. And even if you're doing it that at home,
Mhm.
tell them, hey, it's time to eat, and then bringing it to a restaurant. We have something familiar, something consistent when everything else is changing and new. I think that can be really helpful for some kids too.
Yeah, and we use mealtime at the parks, even if it's snacks, as a time of regulating. We're
Yes.
gonna go and sit in a corner and try to have a little bit of a quiet time. We usually have like a quick conversation, even when we're eating dinner at home now. I always ask my kids like their rose and their thorn of the day, and we try to have a little bit of conversation. And then honestly, what helps my son regulate is he likes to just kind of have his phone and just have be in his zone for that period of time, and that's really helpful. I've so enjoyed our conversation, and I do want to ask like one final question, and kind of what I've been asking everyone that I've been talking to. What are any like final thoughts, final advice, any final comments trying to help parents realize that travel is possible, and anything that you can share just as a final thought?
Yeah, I would say plan ahead for yourself to make
Mhm.
your vacation self have a better time. Like, I love to plan, yet then be flexible on those plans. Like, coming ahead, like coming into it with flexibility and also no expectations that this could go any sort of way.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves as parents for this to be the perfect Disney vacation. And we've saved up for this and it's going to be perfect. And I just feel like those expectations on ourselves, like we're setting ourselves up for just
Yeah.
not a good experience. And I think going into it with who knows how this is going to go, but we're going to come out of this with some really good family memories is a really
Yeah.
helpful approach. And then same with food, just remembering like, yes, food is a part of this, but it doesn't have to be the whole thing. You can put a pause to trying new foods right now. And if your child wants to try something new and they feel like open to it,
Great.
go with it. Awesome. Like, I love it. But don't put that expectation on yourself or your child, because I want you to focus more on the vacation experience, enjoying this together as a family. And it's okay if food isn't ideal during this experience. It's short
Yeah.
lived. Your family's going to remember this forever. And I don't want you looking back on an experience just thinking about, oh, remember how much I stressed about
I stressed about that food. Nope.
I should have just let him eat the churro instead of that apple or whatever it might be. Like, I don't want that to be your memory.
Yeah.
So I think that there needs to bring some balance to it and adjust expectations and just go in like with flexibility and just looking to have like come out of this with memories.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, Brittyn, I again have so appreciated your time and our conversation. I love your podcast. I think you are giving so much great information. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, Instagram is the best place. It's just
Yeah.
at Autism Dietitian. You can find me on any social platform, at Autism Dietitian, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, um, all the places. And then my membership is called the Nourishing Autism Collective. We are currently on a wait list right now, but hope to open up either late this fall or late this summer or early in the fall, for support with expanding your child's diet and getting supports for that. So definitely check that out. But we have free resources as well, including my podcast, my blog.
Yeah.
I have a free download on Instagram to like download your food sensory profile worksheet where you can like work through some things on which new foods are going to be best for your child given their sensory needs. So that's a great thing. I can send you the link too if you want to throw that in the show notes, Kim, if anyone wants that resource.
Yes, I would love to include that. Thank you again so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thanks for all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.